Welcome to the Get Started Investing Summer Series, where over 6 episodes we're going through 6 steps to help you set up your finances for 2023. From budgeting and savings habits, emergency funds and superannuation, through to common mistakes and how to set up the ultimate core portfolio, this series will have something for everyone. While we are licensed, we are not aware of your personal circumstances. All information on this show is for education and entertainment purposes only. Any advice is general advice. But with that said, my name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you?
I'm very good, Bryce. Great to be back for our 3rd episode. They say do things in odd numbers.
Yes.
So today we've got 7 steps to supercharge your superannuation.
Love it. We've spoken about getting your money sorted. We've spoken about our emergency accounts. So now it's that other piece of the puzzle, and that is superannuation. If you're working, you've got it. It's important to think about it.
Yeah, even if you're not working, it's worth thinking about because I can guarantee you at some point in your life, you're going to be working.
That's it. So we've got 7 steps: fees, comparing performance, investment options, insurance, consolidation, extra contributions, and back to basics. So without further ado, Ren, let's crack in.
They often say back to basics should be the final step.
Yeah, it should be the first.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Nah, but it's all admin stuff. We'll get it. It's the if you've ticked off everything, here are a couple of things to think about it. So Ren, let's start with fees.
Fees are something that we speak often about here at Equity Mates and Get Started Investing because they can be detrimental to your long-term returns.
Yes.
Fees add up over time. Every fund, every managed fund, ETF and superannuation fund will charge fees. It's okay to pay fees. Sometimes it's worth paying for a great fund or a great manager, but it's just really important to be mindful of how much you're paying. So you'll generally see fees expressed as a percentage, 1%. You might see it called a management expense ratio, management fee. What else would you say it called?
Account fee, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're all there. So there is a percentage, but there are also fixed dollar amounts. So when I used to be with Host Plus, you could go in and have a look at your fee statement and they'd have like a monthly fixed fee plus a percentage fee. So you might see one or both. And obviously, Ren, when we're thinking about fees, you want the lower the fees, the better, broadly speaking. Now, we did do an episode, if you've just joined us for the first time, welcome. We did do an episode towards the end of last year that looked at superannuation. Vanguard just came into the market with a super product, and we spoke about the net return is what really matters. So if you're interested in going in a bit more depth, jump over to that episode. So Ren, before we move to the next, it's important to understand how you can actually find out what fees you're paying. And the ATO has a great website. The Australian Tax Office has a great website, Your Super comparison tool.
Yep.
Allows you to compare your superannuation against others across many different aspects of superannuation. But there is nothing better than actually going directly to the website and finding the product disclosure statement or whatever the piece of information is that has your fees on it.
Yeah, there should be an info sheet and a product disclosure statement. You can go to the My Super Your Super comparison tool as well.
Yeah. You
can also link the Your Super comparison tool with your MyGov account, and then it will actually show you the results for your super balance and your age and stuff like that.
Yes.
So it's a pretty useful tool. But yeah, first things first, be mindful of your fees. Once you get below 1%, you're kind of, you're not talking about a lot, but anything over 1%, you can probably do better. Yeah.
And it's across the board. There's admin fees. There's fees every time that an investment is made. There's insurance fees in there as well. There's a number of things that you need to look at. And I think the website is a great place to start.
Yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2, how to supercharge your super. Once you've checked your fees, that's only half the story. And arguably, it's a less important half of the story. What we're here to do is make returns. So step number 2 is to compare the returns of your super fund against other super funds.
Compare the pair.
You
would have seen it on TV. You would have seen the industry super fund ads. Compare the pair, and it is true. Have a look at your performance compared to the performance of many other superannuation funds out there.
Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. Again, that Your Super comparison tool is a good one. You can look at the fund's website. They publish their returns. But there are also third-party sites like CanStar, like Morningstar, that will track different super funds.
Yeah. The key thing here is to make sure that you are comparing apples with apples.
Yes.
There is no point that if I'm with Host Plus, I'm not just comparing broad strokes to Australian retail super or whatever it might be. You need to find out what fund you are invested in your superannuation fund. Is it a conservative? Is it a growth? And make sure that you are comparing it to the same type of product with competitors, because it can be misleading otherwise if you're just trying to compare broadly performances of some of the, I guess, high-level figures. But it is very possible. Plenty of comparison websites out there. Just make sure you're comparing like for like.
Now, when we're talking about comparing performance, rolling that up with fees, the thing that matters is your net performance. So every super fund will make a return and then they'll deduct fees. And what matters is your return after they deduct those fees, not before. If Bryce Lesky's super fund returns 10%, but charges 4% in fees, net, you're making 6% return. My super fund, very altruistic, very kind, only makes 8% return, less than Bryce, but charges 1% in fees. Net, you've made 7%. So you're better off going with the kind-hearted, fair Alex super fund than Bryce's better performing but more expensive super fund. So that's why net return matters, because that's what actually ends up in your pocket, well, in your super fund at the end of the day.
Yes. So fees, performance, investment options is the third step when looking to supercharge your super fund, and this matters depending on which stage of life you are at. There are a number of ways that super funds allow you to invest, and they set up investment options to suit different types of lifestyles. They generally have a balanced option, a growth option, a conservative option, a super conservative option, which would be cash, and then there's some ethical elements in there as well. So this gives you the chance to say, I want to invest my super in these sort of portfolios.
And people may have seen those three key terms, conservative, balanced, growth, and they might be a little bit unfamiliar with what they mean. It's about what assets they're invested in. A conservative fund will have more bonds and less shares because shares are seen as more risky. A balanced fund will have a bit more of a balance between the two, as the name suggests.
And cash, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's other assets, but I think let's just keep it really simple. These are the two key assets that shift in the asset allocation. And then growth will have more shares, less bonds.
Yeah.
And general rule of thumb is when you're younger, you should be more growth focused. And then as you get older, you should be more conservative and have more bonds in your portfolio. There is a rule of thumb that's used in asset allocation, which is the percentage of bonds in your portfolio should correlate to your age. So when you're young, if you're 20, you're 80% shares, 20% bonds. That's high growth. When you're 50, you're 50-50, you're balanced. And when you're 80, you're 20% shares, 80% bonds, because you just want consistent income. You don't want to lose money.
I can certainly say that is not the case for me. There's no way I have 31% bonds in my portfolio.
Yeah, there's no way I have 30%.
Yeah, I don't. That is a rule of thumb.
That's like
a traditional theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
well, not theory, but a method. One method of
I think if you're young and you're listening to this, and if you've got decades of work ahead of you, the real question to ask is why you're not in growth.
Yeah.
And there are reasons, but that's the question to ask.
Yeah. So again, this is information that is found out logging into your superannuation account, And you can compare options as well through your super comparison tool. The key thing to understand here is how the funds set up each of these portfolios compared to each other, and looking at if they are saying it's a growth portfolio, it is incredibly important you understand what is in that growth portfolio, how much of it is actually invested in stocks, how much of it is invested in other assets, and vice versa.
So Bryce, I've checked my fees.
Yep.
I've compared the pair and looked at performance.
Yes.
And then I've looked at my investment options, and I am in the right one for my risk appetite and my age. Mm-hmm. What am I doing next to supercharge?
The fourth one is just to understand the insurance options that you have within your superannuation. Most superannuation funds offer insurance coverage primarily across 3 types of insurance. And it's just important you understand how much you're paying for those insurance and what is and how you're covered. So they offer life insurance or death cover. They offer total and permanent disability coverage, and offer income protection. Now, it kind of makes sense why why superannuation funds offer these types of insurance and not, travel insurance and car insurance and bits and pieces. And it's not all super funds do it, but you need to understand whether or not it's something that you want to do, because you can say, I actually don't want to pay for insurance and pay for these premiums, and I don't need coverage right now. So if you genuinely believe like you don't want life insurance at this time in life, then you can tell your superannuation guys not to do it. But it's important you understand, are you being charged for it? And if so, do you want to be charged?
So Bryce, at this stage, we've checked our fees. We've checked the performance, and we've rolled those two together to look at performance net of fees. We've made sure the investment option suits our stage of life, and we've made sure we're not paying for unnecessary insurance. We're only paying for the insurance that we need. I'm feeling pretty charged. Can't say I'm supercharged yet. So let's take an ad break and then hit the final 3. All right, Bryce, before the break, we spoke about the 4 first steps to supercharge your super. Next one, I think, is the most important. If I could have had my way, I would have put this number 1, because I think a lot of people get stuck with this. Consolidating your super.
Consolidate super. Yes. Well, I mean, Ren, your first job was where was it?
My very first job?
Yeah.
In a children's bookshop.
Children's bookshop. You've had plenty of jobs since. Furniture
warehouse. Glassy at Moosehead.
Glassy. You name it, you've done it.
My worst job, waiter at hotel.
Waiter at a hotel. And with all of these jobs, part-time, you name it, you're signing up, and your employer is likely to have a preferred superannuation fund.
Yeah, they have a default.
A default fund, which means if you don't tell them that you want your super fund money going into a specific fund, you're going to get the default fund. Great. But what it means is, after time of getting new jobs, you're likely to accrue more and more different superannuation funds. And this is where we get to consolidation, because if you have multiple funds, so you're paying multiple sets of fees, difficult to keep track, and you're paying multiple sets of insurance. So you need to consolidate. Yeah. And you believe this is the most important.
Yeah, because so many people don't do it. And the government have tried to make it as easy as possible to do it. They've actually passed new laws last year around stapling. But let's not worry about that now, because for people listening to this who are trying to take control of their finances in 2023, here's what you need to do. Go to the MyGov website, link it with your ATO account, and ask it to search for your super funds. That's it. Then it will tell you how many super funds are in your name out there, and you can direct it to consolidate into your preferred super account. And then when if you ever move jobs from here on in, just make sure you don't take the default option. You give your new employer the details of your preferred super account. Now, the good news is, if you forget to do it, if you can't remember your details, you can always consolidate again in the future. But it is the government trying to make it as easy as possible to consolidate. And if you don't consolidate, you could be paying multiple sets of fees. And you've got to remember that a lot of these fees are it might be $100 a year admin fee. If you've got $102 in your super account from that time you were a glassy at the pub, it's gone. But if you want to roll that you want to have as much money in one super account as possible to keep the fees as low as possible on a percentage basis and to make sure you're not paying for multiple sets of insurance. Now, I can speak to experience here. When I think just after I left uni, I checked this and I worked, do you remember, Sydney Festival? I was in their default super account and I rode that account to zero. Between account fees, insurances and all of that stuff, there was money in that super account from when I was doing like part-time work at Sydney Festival, went to zero.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I am an example of not doing, I don't know if MyGov existed then, but if it did, I could have spent a few minutes and saved myself some cash.
Yeah. You can also do it when you sign up to a super fund. I remember that's how I did it before this government consolidation was easy online, and they do it on your behalf. You just tick the box, I want to roll up, and they'll go out and find where else your superannuation lies. All right, so we've consolidated. Now, Ren, I'm feeling good. My insurance is good. Investment options are good. I'm in the right one, but I want to put more in.
Yes.
So number 6 is contributing more.
Yes.
Often that question of, can I put more in? Should I invest more? Should I save? How should I do it? We're not going to talk about what is the right approach here. We're just going to say that there is the ability to put more in super, and there's 2 clear ways to do it. And the first is before tax, and the second is after tax.
Nice.
And so what does that mean? The first is before tax, otherwise known as salary sacrificing.
Or concessional contributions. And that is where Ren might come to Equity Mates and say, I want to put more into superannuation. Can you take more out and put more into my superannuation fund before you pay me? Yeah.
And this is before tax. So instead of the 10.5% that is required by the employer by law, Ren might say, can you actually put 12%? And so that additional 1.5% will go in, and that is treated the same before tax.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
The
second is after tax, meaning Ren takes his pay slip, it's been taxed, he gets his fortnightly, and then he decides to contribute and send money to his super fund. So there's very clear 2 ways you can do it. It's very straightforward. They do have 2 different sort of tax approaches, but the net is the same at the end of the day, given how tax is treated in superannuation.
Yeah, so your concessional contributions before tax are taxed at a 15% rate, which is lower than the income tax rate. And you can contribute up to $27,500 each year. The non-concessional amount, you can do up to $110,000, I believe, and then you're obviously taxed at your full rate, your income tax rate, and then you're just putting in money in afterwards. Now, Bryce, my question for you, do you add any extra money to your super?
It's the one thing that I always have on my sort of, I need to think about this more deeply money list. Short answer is no, I don't.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
For me, I know that there's tax benefits, but I think I want to build more wealth outside of my superannuation, at least for the next few years, than I do inside it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I want to build choice into my life, and super, you have a tax advantage, but you have less choice because you can only access it at the retirement age.
Yeah.
And if I can have that choice earlier in my life, I'm willing to pay a little bit more tax for it now. And I know that tax rate compounded over a long period of time can make a massive difference. I get it, but it's my money. Back off.
No, I agree. All right, Ren. So those are the 6 sort of supercharged tips. There is some basic administration stuff at the end, and that is make sure you're just checking your superannuation account. Don't let 2 years go by and you haven't looked at it.
How often do you check your super?
Well, I actually get quarterly statements, so that's what when I take the chance to check it.
Yep.
Let me rephrase that. Now that it's in my superhero, I'm checking it way more often than I used to when it was with Host Plus, because I'm actively managing part of it. So that's the first. You can find your lost super. We've already been through that, which is through the consolidation process. Go to my.gov.au, and there are some superannuation calculators on the government website as well. If you're later on in life and want to know how much super I'm going to have and how much I need to maintain a particular lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, we did a 3-part series with Superhero on Get Started Investing. So if you haven't listened to that and you want to go deeper on super, I think that's a great place to start. We'll include the links to those episodes in the show notes here. But Bryce, we said we would always finish with 3 key actions. I feel like we've just given 7 key actions, but let's roll it up. What are the 3?
First one is connect your MyGov account with the ATO and try and consolidate your super accounts.
No, don't try. Do.
If you think you need to, yeah.
If there are multiple super accounts.
Do it.
There we go. Number 2.
Number 2 is visit the Your Super comparison tool and find your super fund and compare your super fund with the like super fund of others.
I don't think I need to tell them that. I think if they found their own and they're already on the website, people probably would have done that. But anyway, number 3, what have we got?
Number 3 is check your fees, but more importantly, check what investment option you are invested in.
Yes. Conservative, balanced growth. Does that fit your life stage?
That's it. So plenty to cover there, Ren. As I said, make sure you signed up to the Get Started Investing email to find the accompanying write-up with tools and resources. Head to equitymates.com to sign up to that. But Ren, we'll leave it there. Next episode, we're back with some common mistakes that we made when we were starting our money journey.